Just last week, federal agents raided 2 homes of rapper and music mogul Sean P. Diddy Combs in Los Angeles and Miami. Combs is the subject of a federal investigation.
Again, we do not know what is the information that law enforcement had before going in to execute that search warrant.
Just when we thought the celebrity world couldn't surprise us anymore, a shocking revelation hit in the early hours of the morning. Cassie's husband finally admitted that Sean Diddy Combs had been sending them $1 million every month. That's $12 million a year just to keep them silent. The idea of such huge hush money was unbelievable, even for Hollywood. People had always suspected Diddy had a lot to hide, but this amount made everyone stop and take notice. As we stared at our phones in disbelief, one question hung in the air. What kind of secrets could be worth that much? Was this the beginning of one of the biggest scandals in entertainment history? Or just the first sign of a complete breakdown that could destroy careers and reputations?
Yeah, that's right. Cassandra Ventura, also known as Cassie, walked in with her head held high and did not make eye contact with Sean Combs. But she did describe a relationship that lasted over 10 years with Combs, in which she says he was the one in control.
We listened to his words again, this time feeling the weight of what they meant. If Diddy was paying that much money just to keep someone quiet, then whatever he was hiding had to be far worse than your usual celebrity drama. Secret meetings in fancy hotel rooms, where lawyers hammered out thick, detailed contracts making. Sure, no one would ever speak a word, and right in the middle of it all were Cassie and her husband. Once seen as a couple who left a troubled past behind, they now seemed like the keepers of something much darker. Were they finally telling the truth, or had they been part of the silence all along? Either way, people couldn't help but look at them differently, as if a cloud of suspicion now followed them everywhere.
It really did open the floodgates, as you said, because it detailed almost 2 decades of hidden coercion.
By the time we heard it for the third time, the situation felt even more troubling. Cassie, once known for her sweet songs, and her husband, a personal trainer turned polished family man, suddenly didn't seem so innocent. If they had taken hush money even once, didn't that make them part of the cover-up? $1 million a month adds up fast $12 million a year. That kind of money can silence anyone, even those who claim to stand on principle. But things took an even darker turn. Insiders say Cassie's husband wasn't satisfied with the deal. During a quiet dinner at an upscale steakhouse, he allegedly hinted they wanted much more. He reportedly suggested that, unless the payments increased, they'd go public with everything. Some call that blackmail, though the powerful people involved preferred the word leverage. But in the wrong hands, leverage can become a weapon. Started as a secret payoff, quickly spiraled into a full-blown standoff. Diddy, furious, was said to be ready to take them down in court. Cassie's side fired back with a civil lawsuit so dramatic it felt like something out of a heist TV drama. By morning, the legal battle had officially begun, and it wasn't going to be quiet.
As you all know, I made a request today for what we were calling a gag order, and I'm not going to walk out of court and do anything other than...
The courtroom felt like it could explode at any moment. Rumors spread that Diddy and Cassie's husband nearly got into a physical fight right there between the wooden walls of the courtroom. Security rushed in, and the judge slammed his gavel, over and over, trying to regain control. Some witnesses claimed Diddy's diamond cufflinks flew off. Others said a bodyguard stopped a punch just in time. Cameras weren't allowed. But sketch artists quickly shared dramatic drawings to figures lunging at each other, with their teams pulling them apart. Reporters watched every tense moment closely. Was it over the top? Maybe, but it definitely added fuel to the fire. Then came a serious new claim. Diddy was allegedly running a secret fund to pay off witnesses, a hidden stash of money meant to keep people quiet before they could speak out. It painted a picture of shady deals, cash-stuffed envelopes passed in silence, and confidentiality agreements signed in secret. A paper trail so thick, some say it could bring down everything he built.
Listen to everybody, but you believe all proof.
Believe the facts.
This video is proof.
Hands down proof.
You know?
Just when it seemed like things couldn't get any more intense, leaked emails reportedly from Cassie began to surface. Insiders quickly labeled them revenge emails. The messages suggested that Cassie had a long-term plan, using Diddy's secrets as leverage until she secured a payout big enough to set up her family for life. One email read like a personal mission statement, focused on turning the power dynamic upside down. Another outlined a plan designed to cause the most damage to Diddy's public image. People were divided. Was Cassie a survivor trying to reclaim control after years of pain, or was she playing a calculated game for massive revenge? Either way, the emails revealed a level of betrayal so sharp it could cut through even the toughest criminal case.
They're like, I can't believe it. Like that somebody would do that to somebody that they say they love.
Yeah.
Think about it, because she was on the floor, passed out. She looked lifeless.
Mm-hmm.
We took a step back and looked at what was left of the once mighty bad boy empire. For years, Diddy had been a giant in pop culture, known for lavish yacht parties, private jets, and flashy slogans. But now, all that glamour seemed like a mask hiding something much darker. The headlines had changed. Instead of celebrating his success, they were now using words like racketeering and trafficking. Inside boardrooms, people quietly discussed how to cut ties. Big brands scrambled to find reasons to walk away. Even his music started losing steam. With fans rethinking the lyrics they once danced to, it was clear the shine was fading, and the cracks in Diddy's image were beginning to show.
Drika, how would you describe Cassie's demeanor when she took the stand today?
When she walked in there, Rachel, she had on a brown dress, form-fitting, visibly pregnant, head held high, and did not make any eye contact.
It left us wondering how many people had been silenced over the years through payoffs or fear. The indictment painted a disturbing picture. It described private events referred to as freak-offs that allegedly lasted for days and were filled with drugs, hired companions, and cameras. These were said to be organized by Diddy for his own personal pleasure. Witnesses shared troubling details, saying luxury hotel rooms were turned into dimly lit, drug-fueled scenes. One woman described how what started as a relationship quickly turned into something else, something that felt more like a job than a choice. She spoke about feeling trapped, like she was living a role someone else had written, for her losing her sense of self in the process.
Thinking about her experience in that video, how she had a big movie premiere that was coming up, and what had happened was they were engaged in a freak-off that she didn't really want to be a part of, and Combs had punched her. She knew she had a black eye. She felt she had to get out of there, so she waited for a moment when he was occupied. She said he may have been on the phone, in the shower.
Most people remember the now infamous surveillance video. Even made the evening news. It showed a hallway confrontation from 2016. Diddy, wearing only a towel, pulling Cassie, shoving her, and dragging her across the floor like she didn't matter. That short clip played again in court. Jurors leaned in. Diddy's lawyers claimed the footage was edited. Meanwhile, Cassie's hands trembled as she watched it again. The video only lasted a few seconds, but it was enough. The polished celebrity image disappeared, replaced by something much more disturbing. And then Cassie spoke, her voice shaky, but clear. I felt worthless, like dirt, like I didn't matter to him. The room went still. Even a juror wiped away a tear. Outside the courtroom, the reaction was immediate. Social media exploded. People shared their outrage, and the internet filled with posts about abuse, control, and the abuse of power.
Does he have a shot? I think his attorneys raised some good arguments.
I think they raised good arguments as well. Maybe this will be third time's the charm, because the difference between this bail motion and the prior two is that this one really does get to the heart of what the court was concerned about, which was witness intimidation.
Diddy's legal team came in strong, confident, polished, and dressed to impress. They painted Cassie as a willing participant in everything, showing old chat messages full of playful banter and jokes that seemed to suggest she was on board. With it all, they focused heavily on the $20 million settlement she received in 2023, suggesting her motives were more about money than justice. But Cassie didn't flinch. Her words cut through the courtroom. I'd give that money back if I never had to do the freak-offs. The room fell silent. It was one of those moments that changes the energy. You could feel the sympathy shift back in her favor. Still, the defense didn't stop. They brought up past arguments, mental health issues, and even rumors of mutual abuse, anything to create doubt. On the other side, the prosecutors kept building their case. They presented evidence found in hotel rooms, powders, mood lighting devices, stacks of cash, all of it pointing to disturbing, possibly illegal behavior. Then came a powerful moment. Danity Kane's Dawn Richard took the stand. She recalled a breakfast incident where Diddy allegedly threw a skillet because his eggs weren't cooked right. She said Cassie tried to protect herself, covering her face as she fell to the floor, while security stood by and did nothing. The judge banged the gavel, objections were shouted, but that image stayed with everyone. A moment burned into memory.
Said that Sean Combs said that he wanted $20,000 because of money that he spent on Ventura. So the mother and her husband took out a $20,000 home equity loan, transferred that money into a checking account, and then sent it to Combs.
But we couldn't overlook the powerhouse legal team standing behind Cassie Sharp, strategic and clearly well-funded. Their suits probably cost more than some people's first homes, and their office overlooked the very courthouse where this battle was unfolding. Everything they did seemed carefully planned. First, they filed the civil lawsuit that shocked Diddy into settling almost immediately 2 years ago. Then came a series of expertly written legal motions that helped unlock sealed evidence for the criminal case. They moved like conductors leading an orchestra. In the world of the super-rich, they showed that lawsuits aren't just legal tools, they're part of a larger strategy. They handled negotiations like seasoned pros. They started with a $30 million settlement demand, knowing exactly how far to push. When Diddy came back with $20 million, they agreed, but only after adding special clauses that allowed them to support a criminal investigation, if more wrongdoing came to light. Those clauses turned out to be crucial. It was a calculated legal strategy that blurred the line between seeking justice and playing a high-stakes game, presenting themselves not just as negotiators, but as advocates for truth and accountability.
We're really starting to get more of Cassie's side of this story. And a very striking moment in court, too, was that she broke down crying earlier during her testimony. Jerika talked about how she talked about doing these freak-offs because she wanted one-on-one time.
It became clear that Cassie's legal team wasn't just working in the courtroom, they were shaping the story behind the scenes. 2, they carefully guided the media, leaking just enough to late-night shows, giving anonymous tips to reporters, and helping shift the conversation from gossip to something much bigger: systemic abuse. Even when the trial paused, the narrative didn't. They made sure the surveillance footage stayed in the public eye, quietly fueling awareness through streaming platforms and press whispers. They knew that jurors and the public don't just react to facts, they react to the mood around them. Every courtroom break became an opportunity. No need for microphones, just quiet mentions of patterns, coercion, and long-term abuse. These subtle efforts helped change public doubt into public support. Cassie's story came to represent something deeper, a symbol of long-ignored problems. But questions about motive began to surface too. Some critics, including other lawyers, suggested the team had been thinking about book deals and documentary rights before victim statements were even written. Leaked documents reportedly showed speaking fee projections in media. Strategies already mapped out long before the trial ended. Was Cassie standing up for justice or being used as part of a well-packaged campaign? Business plan. In a world where legal fees can cost more than oceanfront property, even the purest goals can get lost in the mix.
That this is the end of the Diddy story as we know it.
This moment reveals something troubling about the justice system. When money is no object, the courtroom can start to feel less like a place for truth and more like a high-stakes business deal. On both sides, emotion is sometimes used as a tool, not just a cry for justice. Diddy's legal team reportedly charges over $2,000 an hour. Cassie's lawyers aren't far behind. This isn't a simple fight between underdog and giant tits, more like a clash between two powerful forces. And it raises the question, can the system still find the truth when every word, every headline, even every tear on the witness stand might also serve a legal or financial strategy? Maybe that's the most unsettling part of all justice itself, is starting to look like a brand, and both sides seem to be racing to claim it first. Outside the courtroom, the ripple effects are everywhere. Some celebrities began posting vague statements trying to distance themselves from Diddy without outright criticism. Artists quietly pulled out of planned projects. Managers started cleaning up their social media. As more names came up, Mike Myers, Michelle Williams online, discussions exploded with questions. Who knew? who stayed silent, who signed deals in exchange for appearances. It started to seem like this wasn't just about Diddy anymore. How many people were paid to stay quiet? How many smaller players took smaller amounts just to keep the peace? We imagined spreadsheets full of silence payments, unreleased footage stored in vaults, and hidden hard drives tucked away in suburban basements, evidence of a much bigger network built on keeping secrets.
Responsibility.
Well, you
got
to do your due diligence, and his team should have did the due diligence. And a lot of times people do slip through the cracks. There's things that you don't see and don't find out until later on. But I mean, when people are making claims like the way people are making claims, you have to do your due diligence to make sure that if you're having that person on your platform, which is a huge platform, that you're putting out the proper and correct news.
Cassie's testimony took a darker turn as she described being blackmailed with private, intimate footage. One moment stood out, she recalled Diddy, during a transatlantic flight, typing on his laptop and laughing while playing explicit videos of her, even as nearby passengers wore noise-canceling headphones. She spoke about frantically texting people, trying to stop leaks that could ruin her career. In one incident, she said she cornered a man in Atlantic City, her voice shaking with panic, demanding to know if he had any videos of her. The courtroom heard the audio, her fear, her anger, and her desperation. And then the prosecution paused, letting silence fill the room. It was more powerful than any evidence so far. We couldn't help but wonder, was this just about Cassie, or was she one of many? Prosecutors suggested something much larger, a criminal operation hiding behind the image of a music empire. Employees allegedly provided drugs, bodyguards took passports, and assistants collected private footage like trophies. The case was starting to look like more than personal abuse. It could be racketeering. If the jury accepts this enterprise theory, Diddy's image as a successful mogul could vanish, replaced by a prison sentence, and the fallout had already begun. Streaming services pulled his content, sponsors ended deals. His fragrance line disappeared from stores overnight. Posters were torn down, and products were removed in silence. Fans were divided. Some called it a witch hunt. Others said the truth had been obvious for decades. But one thing became clear: the myth of Diddy, as untouchable, was collapsing, one court break at a time.
Reason why is because they gathered so much evidence. Was supposedly they gathered so many videos and laptops and also electronic.
As the trial entered its fifth week, it became clear this isn't just about one man's downfall. We might be witnessing the unraveling of an entire system built on silence and secrecy. If Diddy falls, who's next? Whose non-disclosure agreements are being shredded behind the scenes? Which lawyers are already preparing public statements? Whose private messages are being deleted before anyone else can see them? It feels like the ground is shifting beneath Hollywood and the music world. Victims who once stayed quiet are now calling lawyers. Journalists are lining up their next big exposés. This story is bigger than platinum records or celebrity handshakes. Something much deeper is being revealed. But what exactly are we seeing? Were Cassie and her husband courageous whistleblowers who brought down a wall of corruption, or savvy negotiators who cashed in and came back for more? Is Diddy a calculated manipulator running a machine of silence and control, or a man overwhelmed by excess and targeted at the right moment by those who saw an opening? The jury will soon make its decision, but the public has already spoken on social media, in comments sections, through outrage, sympathy, and debate. So we end tonight's update on edge uncertain of what comes next. Will this be the complete fall of a music legend, revealing nothing but scandal beneath the shine, or are we only at the beginning of a much larger reckoning, one that could expose many more names, many more secrets, and change the way we view fame itself? What's your take? Are we watching the collapse of a corrupt empire, a strategic power play where everyone has something to hide? Stay tuned, stay alert, and until the next chapter unfolds, hold your loved ones close. Keep your ears open and try to sleep with one eye on the headlines.